everybody, it's Jen with Caketastic Cakes, and I'm going to show you today how to make a very delicious Reese's peanut butter cake. It's a chocolate cake with peanut butter and chopped up chunks of Reese's peanut butter cups in it, and it is so worth it. So, to begin, we're going to mix our dry ingredients together first. We're going to start with flour. You're going to need 1 3/4 cup of an all-purpose flour and just throw that into a bowl, not your mixing bowl, because we get there later. Then you're going to add 3/4 of a cup of cocoa powder. I like to use the special dark version, but I'm sure any of it will be fine. But you have to sift it. Well, I shouldn't say you have to. You should sift it if you can. For some reason, the recipe says to sift the cocoa powder, and you don't have to sift the flour. So do with that information what you will. All right, now you're going to add sugar. You're going to add 1 1/2 cups of sugar into your bowl. And this is a little bit different from maybe some other recipes where you would cream your butter and your sugar together. Nope, the sugar is going in with the dry stuff on this one. So yeah, throw it on in there once you have a cup and a half. All right, after your cup and a half, you're going to add your baking soda. And you're going to use 1 teaspoon of baking soda. You're also going to use 1 teaspoon of baking powder. So you've got a teaspoon of baking soda, teaspoon of baking powder. You got both of them in here. Now your dry ingredients are good. Now just whisk them together, mix them up nicely, and set it aside. All right, now getting into the mixer, you're going to add a cup of warm water. Make sure it's very warm water into it because that will activate the cocoa powder later on. You're going to add 1 cup of milk at room temperature. And you're going to also add 1/3 of a cup of vegetable oil. This is all going in there, so nothing difficult yet. I'm adding some vanilla extract. This is 1 1/2 teaspoons. I usually do 2 because I like it. I like it a little stronger flavored. And now you're going to add 2 room temperature eggs. So I always crack these into a different container before I put them in my mixer because, God forbid you crack it in there and a piece of shell gets in there and someone eats it and, there goes your reputation. You're the eggshell lady now. All right, so I added the 1 egg and I turned the mixer on. I like to incorporate the eggs one at a time before adding the next one. So there goes the one, it's all mixed in. There goes the second one, and everybody's happy. Now, once the egg is completely mixed in, I'm going to start spooning in the dry mix. That's why we gave it a good whisk to begin with, so it's all nice and evenly mixed together. It's homogenized. That's a good word. Doesn't get used enough. Okay, so 1 spoon at a time. Eventually, it all gets in there. This is boring, so I cut a big chunk out. And that's the last of my dry ingredients. Now, my cake batter is very soupy. Usually when you make a homemade chocolate cake batter and you're using cocoa powder, it's going to be like this. It's just the name of the game, I gotta say. And that's why we add baking powder and baking soda. We're going to make it fluff up in the oven. It doesn't come out too thick right here and now. So yeah, I'm just giving it a minute or two to mix. You don't want to over mix it, of course, but you want everything nice and scraped and mixed in, and then put it aside for a few minutes. Or, if you're more clever than me, you'll do this part earlier. I took a bunch of Reese's peanut butter cups, unwrapped them. I don't know if you could tell from the colors, this video was actually from around Easter time, and then chopped them up. This is like the old cooking game, Cooking Mama, when you chop up the stuff on the board. But anyway, so yes, I have probably a good cup and a half's worth right here. And I'm chopping up real small because you don't want big chunks because this part's going to go inside the cake. And put it aside. Okay, into another bowl. It doesn't have to be another bowl. It could be the same bowl, honestly. I have about a 1/2 cup of peanut butter. This is creamy peanut butter. You could use, oh, I should have used chunky. That would have been so much better. Okay. Anyway, I use creamy, about 1/2 cup. And this is a natural, so it's got the oil in it. It's a lot softer than the other kind. If you need to warm it up in the microwave for a few seconds to make it soft and stirrable, do that as long as you can stir it and it's very soft. As you saw, I poured in a bunch of my chopped up peanut butter cups, mixed it together, and then I'm going to pour out my cake pans. Okay, these are lined and papered. I use parchment paper in the bottom because this stuff will stick. So make sure you grease your pans properly. I have three 6-inch pans. Evenly distribute my batter, as you can see. No big surprises here. And then I'm going to take my peanut butter, and again, this is where it needs to be very soft and loose. And I'm going to drizzle it through. I'm basically making a marbled cake at this point with the peanut butter and peanut butter cup swirls. So I do that for all three. And the one is kind of off screen, so I apologize for that. But once you have it kind of drizzled and dolloped through, I'm going to take my cake tester pick, my just, long wire thing. You could use a knife or a toothpick, whatever you want, and stirring it up a little bit so that I have less giant chunks of peanut butter. And again, it's just more marbled. Now these are ready to go into the oven. You're going to bake them at 350 for like about 25 minutes. Make sure you keep an eye on it. I tend to check earlier than later, so if it says 25, I'll check it at like 22 just to make sure. All right, this was also kind of difficult for me because I did this cake on a cake pedestal, not on a cake plate first, and so I'm not using my rotating pedestal, which kind of was hard for me, I gotta admit. So I got my cake down, put a layer of peanut butter frosting. I will add a link to that recipe if anybody wants it. And then I put a layer of my chopped up peanut butter cups on top of that. And then goes on the next layer of cake, and you do it all again. There's more icing, and there's more peanut butter cup chopped up, sprinkled on top. And then you're going to add your last layer of cake. And now as far as the icing goes, just give your outside of your cake a good layer of icing. If you want to do the crumb coat and come back and do a second coat, go right ahead with this cake because the sides didn't have to be pretty. It didn't matter if there was a little bit of crumbs in it or anything because it already has peanut butter in the icing. It's a little grained and textured already. So the appearance of this wasn't as important. Again, I'm going to cover the cake. You're not going to see much of it. So do whatever you want. But once you have it all cleaned up and you're happy with it, stick it in the refrigerator for a little bit and let it set up. In the meantime, I took 5 more peanut butter cups and I very carefully cut them in half. I found that if you uh, cut them from the top to the bottom and you just do it with a lot of sawing, you won't crush it. Like the first one, I kind of smushed it trying to cut it in half. So cut them very carefully, as neatly as you can, so you end up with a bunch of halves that are nice and neat. Okay, moving on. My cake's out of the fridge now, and I made a chocolate ganache spread on top. That is equal parts cream to chocolate chunks. That you warm the cream up on the stove just to the point where it's about to start to really foam up the way milk does. Turn the heat off, add your chips, mix it until it's all smooth and melted, and then spoon it onto your cake. And this is where if you put your cake in the refrigerator first and it's nice and chilled, it's going to make the chocolate set faster. If you did not put it in the refrigerator, then your cake is room temperature. It's not going to set as fast, so your drips are going to just be a little different. So just be aware of it. If the cake is cool, the drips won't go down as far. There'll be a little bit more control to them, I would say. Whereas if you're room temperature, they might just be a little looser and run down a little further. And if you want them to run down further, you just add more. All right, so I went around the entire cake, as you see, spooning along the edge, and I just kind of push it with the back of the spoon so it gets to the point where it'll overflow and then drizzle down the side of the cake. And there are like commercial drizzles you could buy too. If making this is not your strength, don't worry about it, just go buy one. Still will taste like chocolate. It'll be good. Okay, now I put it back in the fridge for just a few minutes because I didn't want totally loose ganache on top. And now I'm adding my half peanut butter cups. I'm doing 1/2 at a time and I'm putting them on opposite sides of the cake to try to make it as even as possible. And once I have them all spaced around, I'm going to do even more decorating. You could leave it here, it looks pretty, but I'm going to keep going with it. Okay, as you can see, the chocolate is set up again because I stuck it back in the fridge. So I feel like this was, yeah, around dinner time or something, so I was going in and out. Now I've got a French star tip on a big bag. I've got some more of the peanut butter buttercream, and I'm going between my little Hershey cup halves and just putting a nice healthy dollop. So you could do a rosette or whatever you want, but I'm making a big old pile like you would on top of a cupcake. And there's my doggy. He's here. Here's my son coming up the stairs. There's my other doggy. For a while they were watching me, but go all the way around between the peanut butter cups and it will be beautiful. And again, you could stop right here. It doesn't have to go any further. This is a very pretty cake, but I've got all these extra chopped up peanut butter cups. What am I to do? You know, I'm kind of a victim here. So I'm going to take them and spoon the rest on top. I'm just going to fill in the center with my crumbs, and then unfortunately, you can't see what I'm doing here very well, but I was taking the extra crumbs and putting them around the base of the cake. So now you can see it in this picture. Here it is, all done. It was so freaking delicious. Highly recommend you try it. So I hope you found this video helpful. Please like and subscribe because it helps me out as well. I've got a ton of other videos out there, so be sure to take a look. And I also have a link in the description below for any tools or supplies that I use that you might want to use for yourself. And as always, thanks for watching Caketastic Cakes.